हरिः शन्नो मित्रस्यं वरुणः शन्नो भवद्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मावतु तद्भक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम् Good morning to you all. Before going into the lesson, it is necessary for us to have a little clarification about some questions we had in the last evening's seminar. That is about the masters of wisdom, their existence or non-existence, whether such things, strange things as masters exist or not. One thing is, too much stress is given on the name of the masters nowadays, which made the topic rather ridiculous. Second thing, there is a general lack of self-confidence in a section of the Occidental authors of books. They have a wide in themselves as to what message they have to communicate to the world, but still they have the urge to write something and call themselves authors. So they had to fill the void with some false name. So many people began to publish books in the name of dictations from the masters of wisdom. It would have been healthy to themselves and the society had they the masculine nature to express that they are the authors of their own ideas. Now, their lack of self-confidence created a big lack of confidence in the existence of the masters from the readers. Because if some statements from my book are questionable, and if I am not enough to stand and answer for my own statement, if I claim that my master has dictated those things to me, there is no greater insult to the term master. That's why the great master, one great master says, before you want to say something, you must have something to say. This is what the great master Rabindranath Tagore has said. Before we want to write a book, we must have something about which we want to write a book. If we want to write a book at first and begin to think about the substance of the book, then we have to fill the book with some nonsense. It is like starting a spiritual society without having a plan to do anything. and then thinking of a plan as to what to do. So this is one thing that has been done during the past 2 decades in the Occident. I very much pity that these authors would have expressed their thoughts as their own and stood boldly responsible for what they have expressed. Second thing is ourselves representing the masters too much and promising many nasty things about the masters. If I promise that one of the masters of wisdom, for example, Moria, would come tomorrow night and have his dinner with us, in what way the master is responsible for our nasty behavior? We many times talk of Christ coming and appearing before the TV and the masters dictating to us that eating potatoes is not good. These two things have made the term master a ridiculous aspect. And genuine cases, in my personal opinion, there are only 2 genuine cases till now. That is the case of Madame Blavatsky and Alice A. Bailey. And my personal tiny mind is not able to accept all other master-claimed books for the simple reason that all those books that are claimed as the dictations of the masters are either true copies of some pages of Alice A. Bailey, because many of them do not know the existence of Blavatsky at all. Otherwise, they would have stolen pages from Blavatsky's writings also. And some of these books are an undue dilatations of the sentences of Alice A. Bailey, magnification, to increase the number of pages and volumes, to make enough money for themselves and the publisher. These are facts which cannot be denied by anyone. For example, we have volumes and volumes of some authors where one sentence of Alice Bailey is taken and 5 or 6 pages spent for beautiful, colorful blocks, pictures of self-mystifying figures, and then a few sentences about those pictures which mean nothing. So once in every 5 or 6 pages we get a sentence from Alice A. Bailey, some acknowledged and some not acknowledged. All these things caused an enfeebled impression about the masters upon the minds of some people. And do the masters not know this? They know it long before all this nonsense happened. That is why in 1934, when Alice A. Bailey was not at all known to anyone, and when no one knows Jwalko except Blavatsky and a few people, the master has expressed the following sentences which prove that they know what happens about the many falsifications that are going to come, like the many false Christs who claim themselves. So about these books, they never claimed that they are dictated by the masters. He said, one fellow has dictated to another fellow. You read them and if you like them, accept. Otherwise you can throw them away. That is what he says. And neither Alice A. Bailey nor her master made a nasty claim that they are the dictations of a master. A master has no necessity to prove that he is a master. A master has no necessity to prove that he is a master, because he is busy with his own useful work. For example, Comte de Saint Germain has no necessity to appear in the televisions and claim 10 or 15 times that I am Saint Germain. If somebody does it, that itself is a direct proof that it is a false case. So I will read these few lines of the master. I am a brother of yours. The books that I have written are sent out with no claim for their acceptance. So the books dictated by Moria are Kuthumi, are Hilarion, then they never claim as masters. Take him only as a fellow who has written some books. That is what he means. They may or may not be correct. That is their books. They may or may not be correct, true and useful. It is for you to ascertain their truth by right practice and by the exercise of intuition. You have to find out if the books are true or false. But at the same time, the master is careful. He wanted you to find out if they are true to you or not. Because to him they are true. Neither I nor Alice A. Bailey is the least interested in having them acclaimed as inspired writings, or in having anyone speak of them with bated breath as being the work of one of the masters. So here no question of master. A master is not a master to himself. He is always a disciple to his master. And to us others he is a master. It is we who call him master. And he never asked us to call him master. And the next sentence is, if they present, they means the books, present truth in such a way that it follows sequentially upon that already offered in the world teachings. That means, world teachings means the age-old teachings of the esoteric masters that are unfailingly taken from the world scriptures and no book else. And if the information given raises the aspiration and the will to serve from the plane of emotions to that of the mind, the plane whereon the masters can be found, then they will have served their purpose. So, the books should stimulate your aspiration and your will to serve the humanity. If the book stimulates the glamour that it is written by a master, it is a wrong book. That is what he exactly means here. If the teaching conveyed calls forth a response from the illumined mind of the worker in the world and brings a flashing forth of his intuition, then let that teaching be accepted. When you are reading a book with great devotion and repeatedly, every time trying to apply it to your own life, then the repeated readings give you a flash of light in yourself. Then you will feel a corroboration in yourself for every sentence. You will begin to narrate to yourself, this is correct, this is correct. If such a thing happens, accept the books, but not otherwise. And if they are deemed true under the test of the law of correspondences, that is, there is a big science explaining about the law of correspondences. These books of Blavatsky and Alice A. Bailey teach us what the science of law of correspondences is, and they teach us how to apply the law. And we will understand that all these scriptures have this particular law applied in their stories. The master says, apply the same law to these books. And if they stand to this law, then that is well and good. But should this not be so, let not the student accept what is said. That means he asked us to throw the book away. So he never asked us to respect the book that it is written by or dictated by a master. So before we understand what the teaching of the book is, if we speak Master Moria, Kuthumi or the Tibetan, it means Mr. So and so and nothing more. That is what he said. Let there be no misunderstanding in this. You also listen to the lessons, not with an idea that they are the teachings from the book of the Tibetan master. Take it fresh to your intuitional mind. Feel how your heart responds to it. But wait until your heart begins to respond to it. Every fellow who does not care to read the book properly, or who reads a few sentences slipshod and haphazard here and there, has no right to express any opinion upon any author at all. So also about these books. One great master poet of ancient India says, the test of gold is not the fuel or the coal, but it is the flame that can fuse the gold out and take the impurity separate. So, I place my works before the pure flame of the mind of great people. Let the pure flame of their intuition allow these books exposed to themselves and decide the validity or otherwise of the books. But not at all the doubters and critical minds whose minds are like coal and fuel. The same thing holds good with these books also. So we proceed to our lesson. Further questions about the masters you can openly discuss now itself instead of having some strange ideas. If anyone has still some strange ideas about the masters of wisdom, they can openly discuss now itself instead of having them concealed in their mind. But no, now we are having the lessons of color and light according to the Tibetan master and Blavatsky and scriptures. It is better to have another seminar about another author before we go deep into it. If anyone has any objections about what I spoke loudly and openly, please you can ask me. You need not excuse me for what you cannot appreciate. And I will give you my limitations also. For every statement I make, let it be in this class or in the conference or anywhere, I am personally and fully responsible for the validity or otherwise of my own sentences. And as far as I could understand, I can stand fully responsible for the validity of the sentences I make quotations from the scriptures, from the works of Alice A. Bailey and the Tibetan. That is my limitation. Beyond that, I am not at all responsible for what an author has written something about something. More closely speaking, there are two categories of books written by Alice A. Bailey. One category is books transmitted by Jwalkul through Alice A. Bailey. Another category is Alice A. Bailey's own writings. And I hold responsible only about the writings of Master Jwalkul and not Alice A. Bailey's own writings. This is my personal limitation. And even among the books dictated by Jwalkul, I take away separately the book Esoteric Astrology, for which I do not hold the responsibility of validity of the statements. Because what I know about the book is, there is some gap between what the master dictated and what the disciple has taken down. This is purely my personal opinion, and I hold responsible for this opinion personally. Thank you. We go into the lesson. Yesterday, I gave you a chart, a second chart, that is rays, planets and colors. And I did not include one aspect in that chart because I wanted to add that aspect today for reasons of simplicity of understanding, because the chart is already complicated and the existence of two parallel charts is a further complication to the fresh student. So I wanted to introduce another aspect of the second chart today. I gave you planetary correspondences also. About that, I gave you in the first ray the planet Uranus. Is it correct? When the student begins to meditate upon the flame color, which belongs to the first ray activity, then a gradual change occurs in the student. His psychological faculties are rearranged in a healthy way. During the process of that rearrangement, his response to the flame color changes. The sun takes the place of Uranus. So in the beginning, Uranus is the proper correspondence for the first ray and the flame color, and one aspect of Raja Yoga path. Afterwards, it is the solar deity who fills his meditation. It is not the planetary sun, but it is called the spiritual sun. who is called in the scriptures the indweller of the sun globe. So, this can be called a further substitution. Rather, you can take Uranus as the planetary correspondence in the beginning and sun in the ending. For the second ray, we said it was Mercury. After a proper rearrangement is made, he begins to respond to the same yellow ray with a substitution of Jupiter to Mercury. So, previously, he responds to Mercury through meditation of the yellow ray. Now, he responds to Jupiter through meditation of the yellow ray. And the third ray, that is the higher mind, mathematics or philosophy, he has three substitutions in color: indigo, blue, and bronze color. The indigo fellow has a substitution by blue. The bronze fellow has substitution to the blue. Sometimes the bronze fellow has substitution first to indigo and then to blue. So blue is the ultimate ray, and he stops to respond to Venus and begins to respond to Mercury. This is the reason why the classical scientists of ancient astrology attributed mathematics and philosophy. In Sanskrit he is called, that means the Lord of Buddhi. And the allegories about Buddha reveal us about the substitutions made by Mercury. And about the fourth ray, that is struggle. We have Saturn in the beginning. After the whole struggle is completed, he begins to respond to Uranus. Because Saturn is the lord of limitation, and among the mineral kingdom, Saturn governs carbon. Hence, he is the lord of blockages on the physical and etheric vehicles. For example, carbon poisoning, coldness and blueness, lack of affections, and blockages and obstructions. For example, upon the etheric vehicle, he causes blockages that result in constipation, stoppage of urination, and suffocation from phlegm and mucosity, and diseases like asthma, etc. So, he purifies by applying blockages. Mentally also,